Hey everybody, welcome back to another session of Addiction of the Three Principles. I'm really happy to have Alex Mill on today. Alex has really been a huge influence on me over the past couple years. I think it's been about 3 years, if I'm thinking right, since I found the Zen Life group on Facebook. I don't even remember how I found it, but
yeah, it could be three. It could be 3 years. I've been
yeah,
now out of the monastery since 2013, so anything's possible.
I think it's been about 3 years. But uh, Alex has really helped me quite a bit with just learning how to not pay so much attention to all that random thinking that just pops in and out all the time. And his online retreat has really, that was a huge turning point for me, I think. But
Good.
what I guess let's start with that question that everybody wants to know. What is a Zen life coach?
What is a Zen life coach? Well, so I just started saying that I'm a Zen life coach because I trained in the Zen monastery for nearly 14 years. And so when I came out of the monastery, I knew that I wanted to keep offering what it is that I had learned during my time there to people. And I built a few websites. I created a cartoon while I lived at the monastery called The Voices, which talks a lot about the chatter in our heads, and it throws into a humorous light so that people can actually learn from that. And so I wanted to continue to keep doing the cartoons in some way. I did a whole bunch of writing when I came out of the monastery too, relating my experiences that I had both there and how they related to what I was doing out in the world after I'd left. And so anyway, I'm going to cut to the chase, but I created a book, a little kid's book. I created the online retreat, and then I discovered coaching. I had no idea what a coach was. When I came out of the monastery, I had just accidentally found out what a coach was. And when I read the description of what a coach was, it was exactly what I'd been training to do in the Zen monastery all those years. I worked with people one-on-one, in person, as well as doing webinars like this. I did sessions with people in different countries, and I led groups and created retreats and workshops there. So it was exactly, it was a perfect fit. So I just needed to find out how to actually make a living doing that. Because when I came out of the monastery, one of the stories I share is that I had really horrible credits, and not spending money for 14 years did a number to my credit. So I had to rebuild my lay life essentially when I came out. So money became a real focus for me, and how I can incorporate making money as well as doing what I love to do. Because I knew that it would have been a waste for me to leave everything that I had been learning all those years and just go on and work somewhere. So I Googled how to do what you love when I came out of the monastery, and that's how I found coaching. It's how I found sharing my work through writings and blogs, things like that, and how to make an online program to help people as well as create an income. So that's what a Zen life coach is in a long story format.
Great. Well, glad you decided to do that.
Yeah, me too.
Before we get too much further into this, I just want to remind everybody, I have you muted just to keep down on background noise. We'd like this to be a discussion and everybody to participate. So please feel free to either unmute yourself, or in the participants tab, there's a raise hand feature. And if you click that, then it lets me know and I'll get you in. But so what I asked Alex to come on for today was to talk about meditation, because I know for me it's been a huge asset. Not that I'm perfect with it and do it every day. I'd love
that's
to.
Exactly what I try to help people with, is just to get the perfection out of it all. Is because perfection is like this telling you that you're not measuring up. It's going to come in and judge your meditation practice, and it's going to stop you from actually doing it. So it's a front door, back door kind of arrangement where it's really tricky to work with, and meditation helps with. I'm going to just keep calling whatever thought is voices from now on, because that's really what I focus on, voices, because it helps people distinguish between different kinds of thinking. So, but anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure that I threw that in there, because perfection is one of the biggest traps that I find people struggle with in meditation.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions in it, and that's really why I wanted you to come on. It's just to help, kind of clear it up a little bit, because I think the way that you communicate it is very clear and simple. There's not a lot of extra stuff to it. You know what I mean? It's just very nice. So what? I guess let's talk about the voices. What do you?
Yeah.
Like, how do you differentiate? You said to differentiate the thinking. What do you mean by that?
Well, so it was really interesting. I was doing one of my Zen meditation workshops. I call it Taming Your Inner Noise. And what I heard myself say is that you're not the author of your thoughts. And one of the guys, luckily, he interrupted me. He said, well, actually, he didn't interrupt me. It was funny. I have a recording, and I listened back to how it all happened. And I was saying, hey, any questions? Are we ready to go on? No one said anything. And then I said, okay, well, if no one has anything, and he shot up his hands like this, and he said, well, actually, you said something interesting to me, which is that we're not the author of our thoughts. And so he said, what do you mean by that? And I said, that's really interesting. I just caught a hold of the fact that I had come out of my mouth. And for the most part, what the voices are what is said to us, rather than something that I'm volitionally creating. So one of the things that I really want to put an end to is the phrase, I beat myself up, because that is an inaccurate phrase. We actually do not beat ourselves up. The voices would like us to believe that we do. As a matter of fact, I just commented on someone's, he left a comment in the online retreat this morning, and I said, look, the voices will blame you for what they talk you into, and then make you feel ashamed of the fact that you listened to what they told you to do. It's when I said front door, back door kind of arrangement, it's like, it's a setup knockdown arrangement. They'll talk you into doing something and then beat you up for doing it. So we're not the author of our thoughts in that way. So anybody that's spent any kind of time meditating will attest to the fact that it gets really, really noisy in there, right? And we'll have shopping lists come up. We'll have movies play through our heads. We'll have how somebody hates us, what's wrong with us, what's wrong with them. It's going to go into the past, the future. And that's all good, actually. I tell people we're not attempting to do something, which is another misconception, at least in the way that I teach meditation. What I teach is Zen meditation, is that we're not attempting to clear our mind. Because when I talk about the voices, only the voices would be there monitoring how clear your mind really is. Was that really clear? That was a thought. You just had a thought. Boy, you can't clear your mind. You're doing this all really badly. I think meditation is too hard for you. You should just give up. And then that's it. Boom, meditation practice is over, and voices win, right? And so, but the way that we play the game is noticing them is really good, because when you notice that they're separate from you, you no longer have to identify with them and believe what they say. So listening is good, if you want to do the air quotes with good, but believing them is where we get into trouble. And so when the next shift that happens, and this is where the online retreat part comes in, is that so you're meditating, you're able to direct your attention, which is really what I think meditation gives people an opportunity to do. Left to its own, the attention wanders all over the place, and it'll wander off into, like I said, all those places, the past, the future, and all that kind of stuff that happens during meditation. And what you want to do during meditation, this is what you do instead of clearing your mind, is you direct your attention back to the breath over and over again. And in this way, you develop this skill and this ability to keep your attention where you want it to be. Because left to its own, it wanders off. It's like a tractor beam. I use the expression, Luke, I'm your father, come to the dark side. It pulls us over into unsavory places. I had somebody else in the online retreat say, even if a thought is good, if I stick with it long enough, it'll turn into a really horrible thing at the end, like how I wish that I had this more, or and it's just being able to keep your attention where you want it to be is the be all end all, as far as I can see, of what you want to learn in this lifetime as a skill. Because as we talked about in the monastery, the quality of your life is determined by the focus of your attention. So who wouldn't want to have a better quality of life? Who wouldn't be wanting to learn how to use this very simple technique, skill, to be able to have a say in what you want to create in your life? Because otherwise, it's like having your drunken cousin driving the vehicle of your life. And that's what it's like to have the voices in charge of your attention. And better for you to be in the driver's seat, saying where I want to go, what I want to focus on, what I want to pay attention to. It's a very empowering place. And so, as I was getting to in the online retreat, the next step is finding who that authentic being is within yourself, who can guide your life perfectly. It's like what we're looking for in the external world. It's like, I want to find this partner, or I want someone to be the parent to me, or take care of me, or to, sorry if my view is shaking a little bit. My dog is kind of like rustling up the table here. But we want to be that for ourselves. We want to be our own inner coach, mentor, and guide. And that's what the online retreat teaches people how to do, is how to author your thoughts. Because when he said that, when he put up his hands, I said to myself, that's exactly what we want to do. We want to be the author of our thoughts, but most of the time we are not. We are at the whim of whatever is passing through our heads. And we could see that. I mean, people talk about these, smartphones, as the ultimate distraction, where we're just constantly focusing in on them. Well, maybe these smartphones are our greatest allies to force us to learn how to keep our attention where we want it to be, so that they become powerful tools, metaphor for us, life, right? Powerful tools rather than distracted games, right? So no judgment in any of that. It's just that the more you learn how to keep your attention here during meditation, the more you'll be able to apply it in your life. And you'll just build your attention muscles that way, just as you would if you built real physical muscles, or if you were learning a language or playing an instrument. So I hope I answered your question a little bit there about the different types of thoughts. One is done to us, and the other one is ones we consciously create for ourselves, where we actually have to be in the driver's seat to say, this is what I'm doing. And it's going to take presence to be able to distinguish the two. At first, it becomes really confusing. People ask, well, how do I know if I should be listening to something? That's a really good question. Both, you have to really be paying attention to start to notice if it's helpful or if it's not. Is it leading towards suffering, or if it's leading away from it? So anyway, that's my rant.
Oh, that's excellent.
Oh,
so
okay. Thank you.
How do you recommend people get started with meditation?
Yeah, that's it. Start. So let me clarify one thing. I did it in a video that I created recently where I talked about meditation. Meditation, there's many different types of meditations practices out there. Where in the video I talk about how one group of people will stare at a candle, another group of people will lie down and leave their bodies and float in the astral plane. Another group of people will repeat a mantra in their head over and over again. Another group of people, it just goes on and on and on. Put headphones on and listen to binaural beats or whatever kind of music and call that meditation. What we practice was Zen meditation. It's a mindfulness meditation where you're training yourself to keep your attention in the present moment. And as I said in the video, I think it's the most practical thing anybody wants to learn how to do. Your cat is so darn cute back there. It's like kneading its little basket.
Yeah.
What you want to be able to do is keep your attention where I'm a bad model of that. I just got distracted by your cat. Oh my God, the Zen monk is just being distracted all over the place. It's like it's practical in that you sit and meditate facing a blank wall, and you keep training your attention to stay where you want it to be. The trick is when you get up off the cushion, you don't let your attention go back out all over the place. You bring your attention to the present moment as you're walking about in your daily life. So in the meditation practice that I learned how to do, and the one that I practiced while I was training at the monastery, and the one that I teach people how to do now, is one in which it's something that you do in life, and it helps you be clear, focused, direct. It helps you choose where your attention goes, and that affects the quality of your life. And you asked, how does one start? If this meditation seems appealing to you, seek it out. I think it's easier to do with other people. So if there's somebody offering a workshop, at some point I'm planning to offer the workshop that I do in an online version, maybe a pre-recorded video that people would watch at a certain time. At least that's the plan that I had in mind, was that I would be doing the workshop so people showed up for it. I find so many times that anytime there's something that's available for people that's really good for them, it gets backburnered. So because the way the voices work is they talk you out of doing what's helpful for you and talk you into doing what isn't. So it's no mystery that some of the things that really are helpful to us are things we just can't seem to find ourselves able to do. And sometimes the easiest thing to do are things that aren't that good to do. And, the addiction thing that you're talking about fits perfectly with that. And I would like to take the layer of self-hate that's around that out of the picture, because when people get clear that it's something being done to us, they get more empowered. Like this guy said this morning when he did the exercise in my online retreat where we exposed the voices. He said, I felt drained, but at the same time aware and empowered. Like I was able to separate them out from just these things doing things to me to now seeing them as out here. And that's really what we want to do. We want to get them out into the open where we can see them. So do whatever you can to just start. Get a group, get together with one person to go to this group. Once I offer the online the online version of the workshop, you're welcome to sign up for that. Or just type in Zen group or Zen meditation group or something like that and find out who's offering it. And
I would say
the
chances are pretty good you'll find a group somewhere around you.
Oh, absolutely. It's not like it was many, many years ago where you had to go travel high and low to find a place where people would be meditating. And it doesn't have to be Zen meditation either. Just find something that speaks to you. My encouragement would be to give it some time. Meditation is very much like what I was saying earlier when I was using the analogy of learning a language or building muscles or playing a new instrument or learning any kind of skill. It's going to take some time before you're going to actually notice anything different. And so I'm just going to speak for myself. I spent a lot of my life unconscious, most of it actually. And so to think that meditating once, twice, 3 times, even a month or even a year, we have so much momentum built up toward unconsciousness that to get conscious, it's going to take a little time. So just don't get discouraged by it. It's like trying to find results for brushing your teeth or something like that. It's like, it's more of a preventative kind of thing that I find it to be, that meditation is actually addressing. So.
Great.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
okay.
Joan just posted a comment. Joan, would you like to actually speak?
Maybe not. Maybe she can't.
Hi, I'm trying.
Oh, she's trying. I hear her.
Hi,
John. Guys.
Hi.
Hi. I was a little late. I really am grateful for the conversation about meditation.
Sure.
I've been kind of following the 3 principles now for about 2.5 years or so. And in the North Woods of Wisconsin, there's not a lot of resonance for 3 principles because it's sort of like the understanding is the outside in and 3 principles of the inside out. But I was grateful to find a Buddhist meditation group that meets at my fellowship in the basement every Monday night. And I started going to that, and I'm really just just so grateful for the closeness and similarities in the Buddhist understanding and being in the moment, and how three principles is another complementary understanding of mindfulness. And one of the things that I just recently came upon that helps me to calm my monkey thinking is one out of this Atadipa. But I'd like to read it if I may.
Yeah, please.
It says, I am this light, pure selfless awareness. I rely upon selfless awareness. I do not rely upon concepts of self and other that appear. I do not depend upon beliefs, sensations, and emotions which arise and fall away. Meditative awareness, clear intention, acting wisely, compassionately, and skillfully are this practice. I rely upon this only. I rely upon this ceaselessly. And it just speaks three principles to me.
Yeah, well,
part about beliefs, sensations, and emotions. They rise and fall away. It's very, so that's what I'd like to share. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joan.
You know, it's like, I have this theory, or this, what I've noticed is that I think it's easier for people to embrace the three principles to a certain extent than it is to follow Buddhism or to inquire into Zen, because there's so much history attached to Zen and Buddhism and all the other, because it's a religion. And so three principles, and mindfulness started this too. It started to take the practice and to make it more acceptable to people, so that they go, oh, okay, mindfulness, that sounds like something very useful. It's practical. Meditation, anything can happen into someone's head when they hear the word meditation. Oh my God, it's where these people light incense and bang gongs and zone out and go into a trance and lay on beds of nails, So no joke. That's what yoga, originally people thought that it was this kind of crazy thing. If you look up Elvis yoga, and you'll see how they made fun of yoga back when it was first starting to make its appearance. And so what I think is happening is that the three principles, the more I read about them and read about what they're teaching, it's basically please don't hear this in a negative way. I want people to embrace whatever actually helps them. It's repackaged Buddhism. Essentially, it's something that people can actually grasp, see applied to their own life right now. And for that, I think it's amazing. Just like yoga is amazing in that it's introducing people to the concept of meditation by getting them to go to this workout. And then by going to this workout and sticking around for a while, they start to question, hey, what is this meditation stuff that's included in yoga? And I love it because it's a great way to sneak in something that can actually, it's like vitamins in your cereal. It's like sneaking in something that people are going to eat anyway and being good for them. So, so three principles for me, it feels like, okay, we can people like that. The tricky part with all of it is that if it stays in the realm of these concepts that you don't know how to apply in your everyday life, you don't know how to live them, then the place that I find most people get stuck in is, oh, I know that. And see, the thing that goes, I know that, is the thing that's going to take over your practice. And then, at least for me, when I first found Zen, I found Zen through noticing a process that I had of shopping a lot, okay? So what I did was I was an avid collector, meaning that I would go out and buy stuff all the time. This is my addiction of choice, actually, before I went into the monastery. So I'd get off work and I'd go buy CDs, stacks of CDs, back when they made them. And I get videos, I get books, all the time, nonstop. And it was endless. And so why I'm saying that is that I got to see the process of how I brought that into my life. And then through Buddhism, through meditation, I saw that. So immediately the voices come in, well, the answer must be the opposite. right? If buying stuff is causing suffering, the opposite of that must be not having anything. And this is where you start to see minimalists start, creeping in, and, Leo Babauta, is with the don't have more than you need, simplicity. And it gets usurped by the voices that see an ideal and cling to. It's basically an outside-in process, and anybody who's following along can see that. Like, it's just changing externals, but it's so tricky to play with, because immediately the voices go, well, what's the answer? How do I live life? If I don't feel anything, if I don't think anything. I'm actually working with someone right now who's a personal development spiritual junkie, who is struggling because everything she is learning is being used against her. See, that it's just thought. Why are you letting thoughts control your mind and cause you to suffer? And I go, said the thought. So it's thinking about thinking, about thinking, about thinking, about thinking, about thinking. And after a while, this is where I guess the term mental masturbation comes from, is that it just becomes an opportunity for people to start inquiring about what is the nature of form. And so you get these Zen texts that are rich in these dialogues that are just like, what the heck are these people talking about? And what I loved so much about the practice that I learned at the Zen monastery was that, look, we want to know how it can help us in our lives now. We don't need it to be some kind of philosophy that I walk around with and use it to create a barrier between me and life. I want it to inform, how it can help me to stop suffering and to lead an empowered life. Very straightforward. That's what I love about it so much. So anyway, that was my rant. I don't even know if it's related to anything. So.
No, that's good. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Alex?
Oh, please do.
Could you define mindfulness for me? We talked a little bit about it in another show, and it seems, as you mentioned, it's a word that is talked about a lot.
Yeah. Let's see, mindfulness. I just, the way it's very simple for me, how I view life. It's here or not here. Okay, here or not here. There are two places. So there's this enormous thing called the field of awareness. And within that field of awareness is everything, sight, smell, touch, taste, stuff that I can't even see and experience, like insights dropping in. Where do they come from? Consciousness, all that kind of stuff. Anything I could be aware of is out there in the field of awareness. Attention is like a laser light going from thing to thing to thing. So if I notice this scratch or this itch that I have on my back, maybe some people are starting to go, I do this in the meditation workshop, where I start to direct people's attention to the lighting in the room and the subtlest sound you can hear, and the thought about your morning. And then all of a sudden people are having an experience of all those things, where I can essentially direct people's attention through an exercise like that to bring them to the deepest pits of their own personal hell, to peace and presence, just by directing their attention. It's an amazingly powerful thing to do, to show people the distinction. And so I'm telling you all this is because the attention is the thing that I think we're attempting to wrangle in mindfulness. It's having it here with what is. And then watching as the attention gets pulled up into discursive thought, ideas. Like maybe right now people are going, do I agree with him? I think I lost that around there. I think that green shirt just doesn't really match his complexion, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we watch the voices go around and make assessments for us all the time. And we never question that where the attention goes. And so what I hope people do with mindfulness and meditation is they use it to help them get here, and once they get here, to pursue it even deeper, meaning that find a group of people who are not going to allow you to go back to your old ways, or or give you an opportunity to start to examine the different parts of yourself, start to do some introspective work around that, see how you can direct your attention to finding the part of yourself who can wisely and compassionately guide your life. And so I don't know if that's helpful to you in terms of mindfulness. The official word, I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like they're again, like all these religions and things like that, there are different groups of people. There's mindfulness-based stress reduction, and where they're using it to feel better. And stress is created by thought, obviously. And so what I would say is that what they're doing is they're training your attention to stay in the present moment. If it stays in the present moment, there is no stress. Stress is created by the voices that direct our attention toward it. How can you work with that? Direct it toward what can help, right? So you have Steve Chandler is actually really amazing. I don't know if maybe some of y'all have heard of him, but he has this great phrase where it's turn problems into projects. And he has this owner-victim distinction and if I were to translate it using Zen, it is presence versus not here. You know, the voices, presence, not here. Because when you're not here, you're identified with the voices that have you live a very victimized kind of life. And when you're here, you're the owner. You know, you're consciously creating your life. So anyway, I love how all of this works it's just like different ways of saying the same thing. And maybe something speaks to somebody in a certain way that grasps them and has them want to go look deeper at it. And that's what I hope it does for people. I hope if 3 principles speaks to you, great. If mindfulness speaks to you, great. If Zen speaks to you, great. Whatever helps, right? Was that helpful?
If animals speak to you, that may not be great.
If animals speak to you, well, I don't know.
It could be.
My dog speaks to me all the time.
He's awesome. I love Tex. Joan, do you want to ask the question?
Well, I feel like I'm hogging, so.
No, go for it.
I put it out. Actually, I put that question out there just because I'd love to see what the other folks on the call have because awareness and mindfulness and being in the moment seems just, formless into form. And, the old saying, God is in the word and the word is with God. It's just a word, but it holds so much potentiality to,
sure.
like you just shared, this word resonates more truthfully. Another person may think, but it's all one in this moment.
Yes.
I'm very grateful for your enthusiasm and your comments. Thank you.
Oh, me?
Yeah, thanks, John.
Oh,
so
okay. Sure. Yeah, you're welcome.
Her question that she wrote, she said, would one consider mindfulness to be similar to consciousness or awareness in the 3 principles? And to me, I would look at that consciousness as our ability to be aware. And mindfulness is directing that awareness.
Yeah, like all the terminology, it's like there are only a few things that I really use as tools when I talk about things. Like awareness seems to be helpful for people when I say there's this vast field. And when I mention attention being the laser beam within all of that, like when I talk about a concept, I like to include my description of it so that we're all on the same page. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Because someone says consciousness, someone says awareness, someone says this, and it's like, sometimes people use awareness and attention interchangeably. And my teacher would go, well, the way we talk about it, it's they're different, right? Because the awareness is everything, and the attention is what you're bringing your attention to, and within the field of awareness. And so I don't care how people talk about it. Again, it's like we could just sit around and feel really good about the stuff that we're talking about. What I really appreciated when I was training at the monastery was the introspective looking and seeing, okay, how does this concept apply to my life? So we had other concepts that we would bring in, like projection. Like, the only thing that you can experience is what you see. Like, so when you see it, you're experiencing yourself. If you like something, if you use adjectives to describe this person or this thing or this place, they're coming from an experience within yourself of how you experience life. You know, another person can look at this other person and use their own adjectives, and they're very different. Now you go, who's right? And it's like, well, they're both are, because they're not actually describing the thing or the person or the place. They're describing themselves. And I think it's a really powerful thing now. So we always talked about things from our own experience rather than trying to define or think we know something about life. You know, the minute someone starts to spout universal truths in my online retreat or when I'm in a group setting or in the workshop, I like to just say, look, time out. Even the Buddha said, don't believe a word I say about what I'm talking about. I want you to find out what your experience is of it, because that's where it's going to be the most impactful. What's the difference if I say the voices exist or don't, if you don't actually look to see how they impact your life? And that's what I appreciated about my training so much, is that we didn't have Dharma talks where there was somebody sitting at the front of the room telling us how life worked. We had somebody who was sitting there facilitating how we talked about life working, and then reflected back to us how we saw life working, so that we'd have insights about what causes us to suffer and how we can help ourselves end that and live an empowered life. And I think that's what I think people really want too. Whenever people come to the monastery and train, or even just come on a workshop or something like that, or interact with me for that matter, when I coach them, they are always appreciative of the fact that I'm not giving them an answer to, or telling them how to live life, or tell them there's a right or a wrong way. Oftentimes, they'll come to me thinking that there's a right or a wrong way, and it's amazing what opens up for them. They thought it was going to be A or B, and it turns out to be an unexpected C or D through Z. You know what I mean? It's like, and then I ultimately go, it really doesn't matter what you do. It's how you do it. So that's a whole nother topic. Oh my God. Greg, I could talk to you for a week and I don't think we'd exhaust what we would be looking at. So I want to be conscious of not hogging the show if there are other people who want to ask questions or
well, you brought
anything.
up something. Does anybody have anything? Any questions or anything? And yes, Joan, it's okay to come back in again.
Yes, please hog. Just make the oinking noise and I'll know it's you. Just kidding.
So you brought up insights.
Uh-huh.
And
yes.
I'd like you to talk about that, what that means to you.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. I actually have a story in my book called My Insight Story, and I use it to illustrate what I call insights. So for me, an insight is, people talk about it lots of different ways. They'll say it's the still small voice. And when people start to do the online retreat too, they'll start to get a sense that there's something else that is kind of like a gentle hand on your back that's guiding you through life. So the voices are either, so there are qualitative differences to the voices and our authentic self. At least in my experience, go check it out for yourself. So the voices are very, they're like trying to talk you into something and talk you out of something. So they almost have this debate-like quality to them. And they also, they can talk to you like they're your best friend. They can also beat you up. And so everything is designed within that system. Everything is designed to make you feel bad. Okay. So if you're feeling bad, know that the voices are in the works somewhere. Insight, however, is very, very different. And the story that I share from my book is, I was walking from my hermitage one cold morning, and I was heading out to be the breakfast cook to set up breakfast before all the other monks showed up on the property. And I passed by this piece of trash that I spied with my little eye, and immediately the insight came to pick it up, okay, pick up the trash. But on the heels of that insight were the voices, and they said things like, well, you didn't leave that there. Why are you going to go pick it up? Are you here to clean up after other people? You have to go cook this morning. Don't be late for cooking. And then, so whatever variation of those just kept playing out. And this is very quick, right? Anybody out in the real world would be like, okay, there's a lot that can pass through one's head as one sees something like that. And the decision could be instant, and that was mine. It was like, just keep walking, right? And so it was like the voices won, they talked me out of it, right? But the insight was there to pick it up. Now, the rest of the story is that I'm going toward this rounding of the corner toward the monastery main building. And my teacher rounds the corner, spies with her little eye that piece of trash, and then approaches me about it. And then she says, "Did you notice that piece of trash there?" And then I'm like, damn. Like, so either I say yes, in which case, why the heck did you just leave it there? Or I say no, and then I'm the unconscious monk who didn't notice that obvious piece of trash that's lying there. So I just said the voices tricked me out of picking that up. I did see it, and the reason why I didn't pick it up is that I believe the voices. So that's what I was training to do at the monastery, was to live my life outside of giving my attention and awareness, giving my life over to the voices. And so it's all good. Out in the world, you see that all the time. You know, people just, they just do all sorts of things because the voices talk them into doing them. You know, if anything, from really small, insignificant things. People could probably relate to the trash story. A lot of people have come up to me and told me about that. I shared another story about leaving a shopping cart, just rushing and leaving a shopping cart in a disarray, and then someone coming behind me to straighten it up and straighten all the other ones up. And then I was like, you know, I knew I needed to do that, but I got talked out of it. So even today, I still watch how the insight comes in and it gets overruled by the voices. Now, insights can be other things too, like remembering your keys. You know, like you touch the door handle to leave your house and, oh, keys, I'm gonna need keys, right? You grab your keys. Or you're in the shower and the entire idea for a book comes into your head. It's perfect. It's like, boom, might even have a title, has, you know, it's everything, the colors, the illustration, you know, the blah, 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 blah. But it's instant. That's what's so beautiful about insights, is that they don't have this kind of like manipulative back forth. Now, immediately after the insight, that's where you can start to have that kind of back and forth drama going on. But is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
definitely been my experience with it too. Insights seem to come from a deeper place of wisdom, and they're instantaneous.
Yeah, and they're very short. They don't talk in long, lengthy, flowery speech. You know, the kind of quality to them. They're just like, they're like I just like they're like a drop. They just ding.
It's more of a knowing. There's no figuring it out. You just suddenly know.
Yeah. You know, like the tricky part with knowing is that the voices want to do something with it immediately afterwards. So it's a really tricky place. It's like this is a great analogy. It just came to me. It was like, I have this great view out in front of me, and then the impulse is to take a snapshot of it so I can own it all the time. So what the voices will do is you'll see this, you'll have this insight, and now the voice is going to be like, oh, I can do it, but I want to own it. I want to hold on to it. I want to keep it. I want to do something with it. And then they manipulate it, do this, that, and the other thing with it. And so, you know, it's fine if you bring consciousness to what you want to do with whatever you see. Oftentimes it gets turned over to, you know, that's going to make it mean something like, oh, well, I guess they are better than you at or whatever. So just pay attention. That's the ultimate thing.
I have a question, Greg. Sid's our teacher, or although he's always said it's inside you, don't listen to me. He always said that the truth was seen in a state of meditation.
Yeah, because meditation is synonymous with being conscious and present.
I haven't asked my question yet.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So how would Buddha say that?
I'm not sure that he didn't.
No, I'm sure he did, but I'm just curious how he expressed it.
Well, you know, I one thing I would suggest is, if you're interested in, you know, the teachings of the Buddha, there's a book called the Dhammapada that is supposedly, you know, the transcriptions of what the Buddha said. I don't know exactly how the Buddha would have said it. Again, believe it or not, at the monastery where I trained, we actually didn't read books. We didn't own any books. We didn't have access to, we didn't have a bunch of technology. We lived and breathed that concept. And we were taught how to be that. And so I think it would be interesting to know what that would be like, but my question to you is, how would it help you? You know, like that's ultimately where my teacher would throw back the question, is how would knowing that be useful to you? Right? So anyway, I doubt that was helpful, but if it was, you know, I would just suggest checking out the Dhammapada or research it or look for it for yourself. I don't know.
It's a good answer.
Oh, good.
Your tie's a little crooked, Alex.
It is, again.
Yes.
This is Joan.
Hey, Joan. It's the Joan and Harry show.
Actually, it's usually, you know, and everybody's sort of sharing, and I appreciate your guidance and your thoughtfulness. What I'd like to offer is a really interesting quote that I heard: "Kill the Buddha." And
Kill the Buddha.
And what that meant in Buddhist, the understanding that was shared with me, is that Buddha said, don't believe, try everything I say. Don't believe it just because I'm saying it. Believe it because you've tested it out for yourself, and you know that it is true in your own life. And if you ever come to believe my words just on their own thinking, it's something like, then kill me and find out that the truth is still there anyway.
Yeah.
And I was so I think that's similar to what Sidney Banks said. He says, you know, I'm not here to, you know, be a guru. I'm just here to share with you what I found is true. And
that's
I think
great.
that's what Buddha said too. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't even know that anybody had said any of all these. I've heard "kill the Buddha." I didn't know that. I don't know much about Sid Banks. I'm just honest with you. You know, I wish that I'd said something up front that, you know, I don't come from a three principles background. I come from a Zen background. So I apologize if this is bad communication or bad marketing or deceptive marketing.
Not at all.
I can only know what I know, or maybe it's not any of the above. But I just
Sid always said that the truth is everywhere. There's a thread of truth through every, you know, through every philosophy and every religion. So
yeah, you know, the only thing that I would add to or address in what you're saying is the part about the beliefs. You know, so we explored belief a lot at the monastery, meaning that one of the 3 keys was believe nothing. And the reason why we were encouraged to do that, and I only know it from my own experience, so I'm not going to say that this is why we did that. But from my own experience, for me, belief is nailing something down. Like the minute I believe something or I feel like something is true, even truth gives me the willies. You know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, the truth is everywhere, and that essentially I get it that the answers are everywhere or whatever. It's just that I'm always in this inquisitive place. You know, if we really want to look honestly at ourselves, we are an utter mystery. And thinking that we know anything at all about who we are and what is out there, it gives me the willies. It gives me the queasies, because that's somebody putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is something that's absolutely real, and I attest to it, right? And so I love keep the inquisitive mind, explore for yourself, and it just never freaking ends. You know, the Buddha was practicing until he died. You know, he awoke, he woke up, and he kept on practicing. He kept on talking and kept on teaching. And so anyway, I just offer that to you to keep the inquisitive mind going. And I'm not saying that you're not. It's just that I'm always
well.
I
That's
always
what
wanna
he was
throw that in.
pointing to when he said that, was
Good.
not to get stuck on any one particular thing. That
Right.
it's all one anyway. We actually have a hand up, Chris.
I love that phrase. It's all one anyway.
Chris actually has his hand up. Go ahead, Chris.
Sure.
Oh, I think I just muted you.
Hi.
There you go.
I'm on my phone in a parking lot. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Isn't life wonderful?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Which
And,
parking lot?
Oh, it's a laundromat that has Wi-Fi. You just missed the violent altercation. As I was listening to you talk about Buddhism and meditation, I thought two people were going to kill themselves, each other outside my car.
Oh, well, I hope we weren't the
Everybody's
cause
cool
of it.
now. Apparently they're arm in arm and everybody's back in love again. But I was a little, it's like, okay, I'm going to breathe and try to be cool and calm.
There you go.
You know, my favorite, I don't know a lot about Buddhism, Zen, and meditation, but
That's good. You're better off.
I picked, and I have like 100 questions, so I'm going to like nail it, try to boil down to one.
Cool. How much time do we have, Greg?
Yeah.
How much time do you have?
Good answer.
So it won't be that bad, but my favorite, I learned so much from books, and my pronunciation's off and off.
Oh.
But my favorite thing I've ever read was I picked up a book at a yard sale for $1, and it was about Bankei.
Oh, I love him.
I
He's
love
one
him
of my
so.
favorite Zen masters. Are you kidding me? Is it the Unborn?
I think it just says Bankei.
Bankai Zen. Yeah. There's
Bankai
another one
Zen.
called Bankai Zen. Oh wow, for $1, you got a deal there. That's a great book. I love that
I've
one.
had it for 25 years. And,
Oh, awesome. I can give you a list of some other people to check out.
So,
but go ahead.
So first of all, my understanding of in Japan at the time was they formalized Zen Buddhism. They formalized Zen, and they were starting, and they had committees, and they were issuing enlightenment papers, and they had institutionalized Zen. So my first question was, do you encounter, and what are your thoughts about dogma and, and religion? And, but before you answer, I want to give you my paraphrase.
That was my answer.
Oh, good. Because
you can't see me though, so
oh no, I can see you. You just
you can. Yeah. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, all right. I just want to make sure you got the full answer.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. Well, anyway, I know I'm supposed to be asking a question, but I use this all the time in a letter that's almost argumentative between Bankei and a Confucianism person. Where they were criticizing his kind of beatnik lifestyle. He was a radical. And so this is what I pulled out of the letter that I remember even 25 years ago. In his response, he said, I find whether I'm progressing or regressing, that the motion creates a refreshing breeze.
That's good. So refreshing breeze.
So my only real question was, well, I guess my statement and my question was, I love not being part of any kind of institution or organization, and I love meditating. I live near IMS, 7 miles away, and they have a Monday night laypersons group, which is like, yeah, you don't have to be a Buddhist to be here, and it is cool. It is so cool. But and I also found they lectured us, or they taught us that we tend to do a lot of sitting meditation in the United States, but meditation comes in many forms, like chopping wood, sweeping floors, mopping. So I do find my walks in woods to not be absent from meditation.
Well, good. I don't know if you caught the first part of what I was.
Unfortunately, I didn't.
Oh, okay. You'll have to catch the replay. But that's really what I've been. My experience too is that the sitting meditation makes it easier for you to strip away all of the extraneous distractions that can pull your attention away, so that you can actually train yourself to keep your attention where you want it. Ultimately, you want to be able to bring the mind of meditation with you to movement. So we did walking meditation to add the added complexity of stepping very slowly behind another person and having the voices go, this guy's not keeping in time with the person in front of him. That was a great view out the window. I wish I could be out there instead of in here. and then moving into everyday life where we were chopping carrots and cleaning outhouses and talking on the phone, offering guidance. We brought the mind of meditation everywhere. And so, yes, you can be jogging, you could be chopping wood and all that kind of stuff. It's like you want to bring that mind of meditation with you everywhere. And so I do encourage that. I don't say that those kinds of activities take the place of sitting meditation, because the sitting meditation gives you an opportunity to, like I said earlier, just strip away all of the extraneous distractions that pull your attention away. It's hard to be sitting facing a blank wall and believe at the same time that another person hates you, because there's no other person there physically hating you, and you know that it's a thought. So it just becomes it makes things super clear. Anyway, that's just my own experience of why it's beneficial to actually sit and meditate. But do you have a question around that?
I have more non-questions. I just can't help but comment on your conversation.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, go for it.
I can't help but comment on the dialogue you had with a piece of trash on the ground.
Oh, did you see
and all I could think of was Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground, when someone was passing him on the sidewalk, and I'm not going to move. I'm going to make him move. He's going to move. No, I'm going to move. I'm going to walk through. I don't have to move for him. And I thought, sometimes what I learned in the three principles was sometimes that's just a thought isn't such a bad idea. Like, just to sweep the whole mental conversation aside and move on. But I don't know. This made me think you did a great job, of that. That was the first psychological novel in the history of the world that we know of, where someone opened up their mind and showed us their internal conversations. It's slow. You have to slow them down, because, like you said, it was probably 1 microsecond.
Right.
You were having a
the
dialogue
next
with a piece of
the next one that I love is the Woody Allen from Annie Hall, where they're standing on the balcony having a conversation, and you actually see the subtitle of what they're actually thinking in their heads about each other. That's really fun too. Anyway,
I guess I don't have any questions. My only real question was how you deal with dogma, or if you encounter it, and I got your answer on that.
Well, yeah, you know what? I mean, it exists. I mean, it's like my whole thing, and this is what I carry with me from the monastery, is that we never engaged in any of that. Everybody's so obsessed with, well, who's that person's teacher, and was this person ordained, and where is the certificate of validation that this is real and true and good, and they lose sight of how is this going to help you, right? And I know that this is a three principles call, and I know most of the people that I know from the three principles are coaches. So I have no idea if you all are coaches, but coaches experience this too. It's like, where did you train? What's your dogma? What's your method? And people lose sight. Well, we lose sight of the fact that that's important to people. All people out in the world want is, can this help? Can you get me from where I am now to where I want to be? Period. And when I was training at the monastery, like I was saying to Joan, I was like, we didn't read, or everybody, I was saying to everybody, we didn't read books, and we didn't have access to, so Harry, that's right. I was talking to Harry when I said that we don't have access to all this stuff. It's because we were living and breathing it. And we were seeing how it was actually helpful for us in our lives. It's not something we talked about. If we talked about it, we talked about it from our own experience. Like you said, where you were, the piece of trash and the Dostoevsky, was like, I would want to find out how that happens for you. Like, what is your version of that? And when I do my online retreat, that's what people share. See, so it's funny. The online retreat is like 30 days of exercises where you get an assignment, you do the exercise, then you share what your experience was like. And some of the exercises are, I don't know, I'm going to say kind of mundane, you know what I mean? But people get hung up on the content of what comes out of the exercise, failing to notice how they did what they did. And I think I always go back to, what was your experience? You'll see it in the comments too. It'd be like, tell me what your experience was of doing the assignment, reading the assignment, doing it, commenting afterwards, you know, and so, but people have so many amazing insights about themselves along the way that it's totally worth it to have people look inward. So, you know, if I were to really sit down with you, Chris, I'd be like, well, how does dogma play out in your life? What do you do with it? What are your thoughts around it? How does it affect your life? Yeah, I know you said that you don't belong to any group and that kind of feels good. What about not belonging to a group feels good? Are you aware that not belonging to a group is belonging to the group of people who don't belong to groups? It's like the atheist, you know, he's like, I am proud because I believe nothing. It's like, okay. So, you know, Alan Watts has a lovely way of talking about all that. It's like, if you see something out there and it's the exact opposite of you, then that's holding up who you identify yourself as being. And so it's so amazing to have that kind of awareness that, in like, you know, Greg, you're going to say it, we're all one. It's all one. It is all one. It's like everything that I see is me. And so how cool is that? It's like the information is coming at me all the time, if I'm aware of it. Okay. Is there more?
Awesome conversation. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm having a great time myself. I don't know if it's useful to anybody. We haven't talked about addiction at all, have we? I mean, I mentioned it once.
Of course we have. It's all thought anyway.
I'm addicted to thought.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, you know, we talked about at the monastery is the mother of all addictions is self-hate. You know, so it's everything feeds that addiction to ultimately feeling bad. So that's one to sit with for the day. What else?
That's great.
How much time do we have? I don't want to hog all this time.
We usually go anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. Somewhere in between there.
Okay, cool. I don't want to.
Maybe he could, to finish it up, Alex, you could elongate on what you just said. That was actually fairly interesting about self-hate and addiction. Could you just maybe just talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah,
so
excellent.
when I sit down and, well, actually when I stand up, when I stand up and offer my Zen meditation workshop called Taming Inner Noise, what I do is I teach people something called the thought cycle process. And how it works is I have people see that there's an insight. I'll just use an example to illustrate this, so it's much easier for people to grasp the addiction to the self-hate part if I use an example. So say you have this insight that you want to do something like I want a healthy diet. You know, I don't want to, maybe I've seen the doctor and I don't want to feel sick any longer. So I'm going to get a healthy diet, or I want to do yoga first thing in the morning, something like that. So that drops in as an insight and you're like excited about it, enthusiastic about it. And somewhere between here and you actually accomplish, maybe you do the healthy diet for a while. You know, you've taken all of the ingredients that you need to make your shakes, or maybe you've got the yoga clothes out ready to do yoga first thing in the morning. And then what happens? You know, the alarm rings early in the morning for yoga, and there's just this the person who was excited about doing yoga the night before isn't the person who wakes up in the morning faced with the alarm going off and going, I don't want to get up out of bed. Or the other thing with the healthy diet is you find yourself in a bakery and there's a chocolate cake in front of you somehow, magically, mysteriously, and and then you're confronted with, okay, well, what do I do? And so the coping behavior around both of those would be, you know, so I get talked into oversleeping and not doing yoga. And what would some voices be around that? Like, oh, it's so warm in bed. Why bother getting up? I just did yoga yesterday. What are you trying to prove? It's like, maybe just another 5 minutes. I want to sleep just another 5 minutes, whatever. The same thing with the cake. It'd be like, well, you were so good. You've been eating all this really good food for you. It's all organic. And and you had a hard day at work, do something nice for yourself. It's, it's just a little piece of chocolate, blah, blah, right? So you hear the little debate going on, trying to argue for your immortal soul. And then you ultimately do what you do, right? For me, it was buying all those CDs and spending my money. And then it feels good initially, right? So in the cycle, you go down and it feels good initially to, have the bite of the cake or to sleep in. But then I ask people, well, what happens after that? And they talk about the beating, right? And so it's like, well, there you go. You have absolutely no discipline. You say you want to change your life, but ultimately you're just going to sleep in and not do yoga, or, right. It's some variation of that. Loser, whatever you hear, everybody has some version of this. Okay. If you look honestly at yourself, there's something that you may want to do, and you, for whatever reason, can't seem to find yourself able to do it or not do it, right? And I would say that's a good place to look to see how this process plays out in your own personal life, right? Is there something that you really want to do, somehow you find yourself not doing it or unable to, and you'll be able to find this cycle in there somewhere. There's something you're doing instead of that, and that's cause for a beating. And anything can be used for a beating. It could be alcohol. It could be, the coping behavior could be alcohol, could be shopping. It could be personal development. I see people addicted to personal development as a way of avoiding looking at themselves, believe it or not, or doing anything. Like my whole thing was, I need more information before I can make a step. So the inertia that personal development can create. And I actually have somebody that I'm talking to right now who has that as the addiction of choice. And one of the things she's choosing to step away from is that she just gets in this world of personal and spiritual development and loses sight of everything else. She just gets so mired in these concepts that she can't, whoops, sorry, that's Jax. So anyway, anything can be used as a coping behavior. And then the feeling bad part of it is the beating. And then we can't stay in the beating forever because it feels too crappy. So the next step is the voices throw in, well, next time you'll do it better. It's the self-improvement part. It's where I'll say, I'll never do that again. I'll stay on the treadmill for an extra hour tonight, or I'll start a schedule. Has anyone else started a schedule before? And where does that, that just gets thrown back into the cycle again of not ever using it and feeling bad that you don't use a schedule. So it's like the voices use anything and everything as an opportunity to beat us, right? And so this kind of, it's the ultimate addiction, meaning that we pursue that every addiction, physical addiction, like that's the coping behavior, feeds this ultimate goal of feeling bad. So if there's an area of feeling bad anywhere in your life, and this is not something to feel bad about. What's funny? Someone was sharing with me that they fell for feeling bad and felt bad about feeling bad. And I was like, bingo, that's what the voices do. They just fold everything back into itself. And in the practice that I teach people how to do, it's to fold themselves back out of it. So consciousness can constantly keep folding wisdom, clarity, and compassion anytime the beatings start to fold in. So I think it's a good thing. I tell people in the online retreat, I'm like, this is great. The voices do what they do. You do what you do. You keep coming back. It's the old Zen proverb, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. That's it. Just keep standing up the 8th time. Keep standing up, right? And so anyway, I hope that answered your question in a kind of like a long-winded, convoluted, story-like way. But I felt like I needed to illustrate that point. I usually have a whiteboard to show you that it's a circle, because after the decision to be perfect, which is the 4th part, you move back through, because life becomes, this standard gets held over you. You can never meet the standards. From the voice's point of view, you'll never be perfect enough, right? You'll never do well enough. It'll never be good enough. As a matter of fact, the whole premise the voices work from and through is something wrong, not enough. So if you spot either of those two things creeping into the quality and the flavor of your thinking, know that that's the voices playing at large. That's my rant. I hope that was helpful.
So how do you tie that into, you like
Meditation?
talk about compassionate self-mentoring.
Yeah. How do I tie it into what? Compassionate self-mentoring?
Well, because that's obviously the kind of the opposite end of that is the compassionate self-mentoring. So how does that tie into all of this?
Well, all of this is, so when I said author your thoughts and we started talking about meditation and how voices are in the driver's seat, ultimately you want clarity, center, compassion, wisdom, who you authentically are. See, people think, oh, I need to do all this stuff in order to get to being that. It's like, this is what the Buddha taught too, is that, no, you already are freaking enlightened. You just don't know it. You're listening to all these voices that are going off a lot. It's like I depict it like this enormous wall that circles you completely. And the degree to which you're unconscious is the degree to which you're relating with not life, but you're thinking about life, the wall, right? So it's this back and forth, like, oh, that's the truth. Oh, it's like you're like in a room that's just plastered with posters of that you like and dislike, and that you're relating with those. You're not actually seeing life the way that it is. And so as you start to practice more and become more aware and present, pieces of that start to fall out. So in the online retreat, we start to dismantle the lies that the voices use to create our experience of life. And as we start to dismantle it, we start to replace it. Now, you hear this in an interesting way, not as like, wow, that's kind of weird. But like, so the thinking happens in language, right? And so the voices work in language. They say the things like, you loser, and all that kind of stuff. And so what we don't have is an understanding of what we need to remember instead that could help us and guide us, like our own internal coach or mentor or guide or wisdom, but it's in there. And that's what we would be if we stopped relating to the wall around ourselves. So you don't have to be enlightened. You already are. You just need to stop doing stuff. So that's why Zen is constantly depicted as not that. What's not that, right? So remember, it's like, I don't know if anyone remembers that aspect of it. It's like, I think Yoda captured it perfectly. It's by calling it, you must unlearn, I think that's how he said it anyway. I don't want to misquote Yoda, but it really is like that. That's why we didn't read books, because that would just be implanting more and more and more and more and more ideas, dogmas, garbage, thinking around stuff that may not actually help us, right? I'd rather have an experience of those concepts myself rather than just reading about them. That's why reading about meditation was the irony of, before I went into the monastery, I would read about meditation. So all my books were about how great meditation was. They had these exercises to do, these introspective exercises. I would skip over those and I would continue to keep reading, because it was easier to be a sideliner reading this inspirational, motivational stuff than it is to actually be in the trenches and doing it. And so I finally broke down after book 9 or 10, and thank God I did, because that's what led me to the monastery to train. I literally just, I put what I was reading into practice, and anybody that's ever done it knows what I'm talking about. It's like reading about dancing or reading about cooking. It's like, that's pretty fun, but it's not the same thing. Okay, just stop it. So anyway, I'm not trying to poo-poo reading or learning or intellectual kind of stuff. I'm just trying to put it into perspective. It's a stepping stone to doing something with your life, like actually having your own experience and stepping into it, rather than adopting and taking on And Osho does this great thing too. Anybody else that like, you were looking for someone to read some Osho. He's fabulous. He talks about this perfectly. He's like the philosophers, he rants on them. He's just like, they just walk around with all this knowledge and using the brain to memorize and to learn and study and categorize. And he jokes around about them, like just completely being oblivious. They're the hardest ones to work with because they just know it all. And so there's nothing else for them to, they don't look inside. They just they just understand it all. They've categorized it. Because it's a very safe place to go. The mind is a very safe place, safe in air quotes again, place to go, to be with the voices alone and be with the internal authority rather than being in life. So,
right. Joan actually has another question or a comment here.
No. She's got a comment. She's got a quote for us. You got a quote for us, don't you, Joan?
Oh, you are on the same page. It's from the missing link. It's from the missing link.
Go for it. We want to hear it.
Thanks. Because what you're saying is just using different words.
Right. Isn't that fun?
Ideas. And it's just being here in the moment and expressing it. I just want to share on page 13, Sydney Banks says, a theosopher's understanding comes from a direct experience, using his or her own innate knowledge, and if you wish, from what is sometimes known as original thought. So what I hear you saying is, from using the words voices, and I would use the word thoughts, is that if we, clear away and quiet it to this only thing we have is this present moment, and being one with this awareness, is that's the only time this authentic part of me and part of reality can even come to my consciousness for inspiration.
Yeah.
And so I did want to share it, and I appreciate your patience with me.
Oh, no. I absolutely have no patience with you. I'm just joking. So this is one of those things that I like to throw out there about clearing away the thoughts or dropping the voices or quieting them. So I use the phrase taming your inner noise, and then midway through the workshop, I tell people that's a ruse. We're actually not doing anything like that. We're not taming any inner noise. I just use that phrase to get you in the room because I thought you'd be interested in that. So we're actually, it's very different than clearing your mind or taming your noise or quieting the voices. You don't actually have any relationship with the voices at all. So the voices the voices are like pink elephants. And I joked around one time that I was doing a Reinventing Yourself weekend event with Steve Chandler and my partner, Karen Davis. And I was on stage. This is the first time I ever said it. Just came to my mind. It was so perfect because the room was so huge and the visual was so perfect. But it's like having a pink elephant in the room and then having a bunch of people going to the wall and cutting a huge hole out of that wall for the pink elephant to walk through. It's like, no, don't do any of that clearing your thoughts or quieting the voices. That's like cutting a hole in the wall to let the pink elephant out. The pink elephant doesn't exist. You just need to direct your attention to what's not the pink elephant, right? So it's like, so you don't have to have any relationship with the voices at all. At the first, what I do is I have people listen to them so that they get clear, like who's who and what's what, right? So it's like if you're getting bad information from a certain source, you want to see how it works, okay? So if you make a commitment to meditate every day and you get back from work and the voice, at the time of your meditation, the voice says, you had such a hard day at work. You know what would really take care of you is sitting in front of the television set with a tub of Ben & Jerry's. That's really what would take better care of you. If you don't know that that's a voice and it's just talking to set you up so that it can later beat you up for doing that, then you're on this constant loop of, I'm this bad person who does this thing and I can't ever seem to meditate, blah, 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 blah. You just want to get clear on who's who and what's what so that ultimately you can just stop believing it, because that's the step. So it's not quieting the mind. It's not whatever, knocking down the wall, cutting the hole out for the elephant. It's simply redirecting your attention to where you want it to be, you know? So much of our time is spent trying to solve problems instead of focusing on the solution. And if we focused all of our attention on the solution, on the thing that what we want to create for ourselves in our lives, we'd have a different experience of life. I tell people, try to imagine what life would be like for you and everyone if we never believed another thought in our heads or another voice that came through. It'd be kind of peaceful.
And enjoy the fish food or the cherry Garcia.
We would enjoy the fish food. We'd be, with the cherry Garcia. Yes, that's right. And not to say that there isn't a time and a place for sitting in front of the television set with a tub of Ben and Jerry's. So I don't want people to hear that and go, oh, he's so against, meditate. She's so against television and ice cream and eating chocolate cake and what else did I make fun? Oh, sleeping in. Like, no, just do it consciously. Like, if you say that you want to meditate at a certain time of day and you don't do it, I want you to see for yourself how you didn't meditate. So it's not a tragedy. I often like to reassure people who struggle with meditation. I said, look, it ain't a problem that you can't meditate. Just see how you don't. Pay attention to that. That's valuable. If someone doesn't finish the online retreat that I created or struggles with finishing it, I want them to at least see how they don't do what they say they want to do and how it shows up in other parts of their lives. And so that they can be free of it. They can use anything in their experience to be free of it, even not doing something. So anyway, I get very enthusiastic about that because in my world, there isn't such thing as there's no way to do it wrong. The only wrong way to do it is not to be here for it. And even that's not wrong. You'll have another lifetime to get a shot at it if you believe in that. Anyway, I'm not going there.
Right. So I think we'll do one more question and then we're going to wrap it up. Bob and Marty have their hands up. Go ahead.
Well, I'll make sure to take an hour for that answer. So,
or at least two.
Two. That's true. I wouldn't want to cut one person short. Go ahead.
I always thought I had a problem because I would go with one discipline for a while, one philosophy for a while, and I'd see some truth in it, but I always saw also stuff that didn't resonate with me.
Got it.
Sid made it so simple for me. Wisdom is wisdom. Truth is truth. When you hear it, your inner well-being, your inner wisdom resonates, responds to it. And to me, I'm so grateful that he took this truth of life, this foundational principle of life, and simplified it, because I have been a meditator and I have my good times and bad times with it.
Sure.
And I just want to thank you for clarifying so much of it.
Sure.
You really did clear up a lot of why I had so much problem with it.
Well, so if I may, I just want to throw out a little one extra thing, and I hope you take this in the spirit of inquiry. Like look for yourself, because if something, I'm always curious about the part that doesn't resonate for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that there's truth and not truth, but in the practice that I learned to do is, if there's something that kind of seems out of place, I want to keep staying really curious there, because I want to make sure that because it doesn't fit, I don't want to assume it has anything to do with it necessarily, than it is that I'm not ready to understand what that is, or my own beliefs and assumptions and how I'm put together, it's in conflict with that, right? So I'd rather just stay curious with it rather than let it be a source of like, okay, well, I'm going to now move on, or I'm going to just collect the truth, and all of these untruths can stay where they are and not be incorporated into how I see the world. It really ties into what I was saying earlier about how there are just absolutely no mistakes in any of this. Even the struggles that you have in meditation can be useful to you to see what is it still that is unresolved, maybe inside, or it could be, you know, for all I know, it could be a place for you to even go deeper, you know, like, because I've seen how the voices stop people from taking extra steps to move through the invisible wall of fire, so to speak. Like, I'll see it in my online treat all the time. People will be making this progress step by step through, and lights are coming on. And I'm like, the minute that happens, I start to get this queasy feeling inside, because I know that the voices like to come in even harder at that point. And I tend to ramp up my engagement with them when things are going really well. So anyway, I just offer that to you as an encouragement to perhaps, I don't know, either see how that's so for you or disregard it entirely. But I can really relate to the finding lots of different areas of, you know, different practices or different philosophies. My teacher used this great analogy of like digging for water in your backyard, and these little potholes that you'd have instead of going deep in one spot. And I think it's fun to think that there's going to be something that I'm going to run into that's not going to click just yet. And it might be that I need to stick with it maybe a little bit longer. And it's not an encouragement to stay in something that is harmful. You'd have to see that for yourself. Like, I'm not encouraging an alcoholic to hang out at a bar to see themselves through, you know, that. I think that there are lots of different ways to approach seeing yourself through a barrier. But anyway, does that resonate? Is that helpful?
Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome.
I like the way you talk about the voices, because, you know, we think of them in the three principles as thoughts.
Yeah.
But in a way, they are kind of a little voice in our head.
Yeah.
In a way, it's like we're all kind of schizophrenic.
Well, yeah, well,
voices come in, and, you know,
yeah,
we
well,
and, you know, we get lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that. I use the voices specifically instead of thought, because there are different qualities that they take on. And I use voices very specifically to refer to the voices of, you know, self-hate, egocentric karmic conditioning, and anything that causes us to struggle. Right. And so there's your authentic self that speaks through the insights and the coaching and the wisdom. And it's like we know better because we treat other people better than we tend to have access to within ourselves. And so that lives inside of us. It's just that we don't have access to it because of how we've been trained. You know, like if you just look at how we've been raised and the kind of things that we pass along from one generation to the other, it's a very traumatic experience. And so we internalize the voices that were passed on to us, either implicitly or explicitly or whatever like that. You know, like my mother ignores me and the voice comes in and says, well, she doesn't love you. Right. And there you go. We would talk about it as there are different parts of ourselves. And if you really look deeply, you'll start to notice that you aren't just, you know, Bob and Marty. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just one person. There's a part of you who wants to do this thing, and there's a part of you who wants the exact opposite of doing this thing. And if you take any situation in life, you'll start to see, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. For every time I'm excited about this one thing, there's another. I would have a part of me who was, I would describe, there's happy-go-lucky. When I was at the monastery, I was like, this part would just like to just go to the creek and hang out there for the day and not wear my watch and just be with the dog and come what may. But then there was a by the books part of me, you know, who was very specific. Like, it's going to take an hour to do this. It's going to take an hour to do that. I got to check off all the things on my to-do list, the little boxes and things like that. And so when you said schizophrenic, it can feel that way if we don't know who all the players are internally. But once you start to see how you're put together, and with the orchestral guide of the conductor, which is what I call center, you can make an incredible life out of all these different ways of being to work together. The trouble we run into is when we bring in the wrong part for the job. You know, like we bring in the little kid who's going to throw a tantrum instead of the boss who's going to communicate clearly, wisely, and compassionately, right? And so we want to be able to be a good conductor for our lives, right? We have to call the right part of us for the job. So anyway, thank you for that, because that really helped me bring in another element of practice in. So thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to meet you both. I recognize you, Bob, from I think Facebook. So it was nice to see you live and in person. Nice to meet you, Marty.
Yeah, those two actually live close to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're probably like hitting the ceiling with or your floor with the broom handle, right? Not that close.
Not quite that close, but pretty close.
So I know you're loud. You have like this musical instrument that you made.
Right on. It is a little loud.
Don't make me laugh. I have the hot tea coming out of my nose. All right, go ahead.
It's still hot. That's a really good cup. You should sell those.
It is really good. I am actually $50 for the whole set. but shipping is free. That's just for the handling. Go ahead.
Awesome. Well, this was absolutely awesome, Alex. Thank you so much for coming on.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. This was great. Thanks everybody for sharing. You know, Bob, Marty, Joan, Chris, Harry, everybody. So how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more?
If they want to learn a little bit.
That's not a trick question. If they want to talk to you more, if they want to, maybe about your online retreats, or I know you have the Zen Life group on Facebook.
Yeah, I have that. Everything's an experiment. My website is likely going to stay around for I can't say forever. Everything's transient, but it's zenlife.coach is my website. So it's www.zenlife.coach. And that's where I live. I mean, not literally, but that's where people can read all about what I'm up to. The online retreat is there. That actually has its own URL. It's what is it? compassionretreat.com. So if they want to learn more about the online retreat, I highly recommend that. No one has to meditate.
Me too. I would definitely recommend that if somebody wants to learn to
you've gone through
focus better.
Yeah. For me, it's deceptively simple, but it's nothing short of dismantling. This is the way I would talk about it: dismantling the ego and allowing your authentic nature to guide your life perfectly. It's how to be your own self-coach, essentially, to have that. It frees up a whole lot of energy. So
right.
I love it.
Yeah, definitely recommend. That's just me. So thank you so much, Alex. I love you. It's always great to talk to you.
Oh, I love you too, Greg. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And I'm going to go ahead and absolutely. I'm going to unmute everybody so people can say thank you and goodbye and everything.
And we can talk about each other.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome. Thank you.